Well, good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to another More Tea Vicar. I hope you're sitting comfortably in your homes with a nice cup of tea. The weather's getting colder now, and so what else will you want to do on a Thursday afternoon but join me from the vicarage for another edition of More Tea Vicar. And have we got a great programme for you today? More interviews, reflections and my travels. And thank you to those of you who are writing to me and telephoning me saying, thank you, Andrew, for keeping in touch with us. I know some of you are unable to get out at all, and especially those I normally regularly visit, my sick communicants, those of you who would normally come to church, but because of illness are unable to do so at this present time. And I just want you to know that I still care about you, and I'm looking forward to coming to see you soon, and I send you my love. So this is the best way we can do it, so I hope you'll enjoy the programme. Well, first of all, some national church news. The General Synod will now debate the independent report on child sexual abuse. The report clearly says that on many occasions over the years, the Church has failed sexual abuse survivors. The Archbishop of Canterbury has responded to the report by saying that it highlights that the Church clearly needs to listen, learn and act. And we look forward to receiving further developments on how we move forward as a church and to make sure these dreadful things do not happen in the years to come. Well, the centuries-old Whitechapel Bell Foundry has been sold in London. There are plans to convert the foundry into a luxury hotel. The foundry was first established in 1570 and was one of the oldest companies in the United Kingdom. It was the birthplace of Big Ben, Bow Bells, and no doubt in many of our churches throughout the UK, there are bells that were cast at Whitechapel Bell Foundry. So a sad day, but I'm pleased to say that at this present time, there has been a move to buy back the foundry by the Historic Preservation Trust. Well, let's hope. Let's drink to that. I was interested to read some news this week regarding the Roman Catholic Church of a very sensitive and sensational twist in a Vatican financial scandal. Cardinal Giovanni Becciu had been abruptly sacked and deprived of his vote at the next conclave, which of course, as you will know, elects the new Pope. And it's become clear that Cardinal Becciu had clashed with Cardinal George Bell, who I'm sure you'll remember was convicted and acquitted in Australia over a child sex scandal. The Times newspaper reported recently that a senior Catholic cardinal has been accused of using €700,000 to bribe witnesses to secure a sex abuse conviction against his rival Cardinal Bell. The cardinal's name, reported in the Italian press, was 72-year-old Cardinal Becciu. Things that go on. Cardinal Bell has now returned to Rome. But what a scandal for the Roman Catholic Church to have to cope with. Well, it's been reported that some churches are to help with changes on the high street. Churches could be used to provide cash services in remote communities that have been abandoned by the high street banks. The move to be a cashless society has been very convenient for many, Yet for some people, especially those who live on low incomes, and the elderly and those who live in very isolated communities, cash is very important. And so the church are taking on this role in some places. And I remember back in the 90s when I was a country vicar with 3 parishes, we opened up our church in one of our villages as a local post office for a time being when the village post office closed. I think it's a great idea of staying committed to the gospel of Jesus as we respond to the real challenges and issues of people's lives. And that is what we should be doing, and that is what the gospel tells us to do. Well, now to some news from our own Diocese of Salisbury. As you know, we have recently celebrated the season of creation. Last Sunday was the feast day of St. Francis of Assisi. And it was also Animal Welfare Sunday. And in the Upper Wye Valley team, it was their Zoom pet service. And the Reverend Trudy Hobson explained, being rural with many farms in and around our benefice, animal welfare is very important to our team. And so we decided to have a service which was well attended, where the animals were very, very well behaved. I did a pet service many years ago. I still got that on video today. It was very successful. The only thing that I couldn't cope with was rats. I really do find rats very difficult to cope with. But the Reverend Jane Buckles summed up the importance of pets during the service by reading the words of God and Dog, a song by Wendy Francisco, which, when updated on YouTube in 2009, received over 1 million views in the first 40 days. I love this. Listen to it. I look up and see God. I look down and see my dog. Simple spelling, G-O-D. Same word backwards, D-O-G. They would stay with me all day. I'm the one who walks away. Both of them just wait for me and dance at my return with glee. Both love me no matter what, divine God and canine mutt. I take it hard each time I fail, but God forgives. Dog wags his tail. God thought up and made the dog. Dog reflects a part of God. I've seen love from both sides now. It's everywhere. Amen. Bow wow. I look up and I see God. I look down and I see my dog. And in my human frailty, I cannot match their love for me. Isn't that lovely? Well, now some of our local church news. And this coming Sunday, the 18th of October, we shall be having our annual parish church meeting at Holy Trinity. And that will come directly after our parish Eucharist. So we shall start promptly at 11:30 a.m. I hope that all of you will be able to try and make an effort to come to that. We have all the risk assessments in place, and we will be showing you to your seats. If you're attending the service, we're going to ask you to stay in your seats. We're asking you to sanitize your hands, wear masks, and stay distanced. It's a very important meeting of the church year, as I said last week, and we have to have that meeting to satisfy the requirements of the Charity Commission. At that meeting, we shall begin with the annual vestry meeting, which will elect our new church wardens. Then we will have hear about the proceedings of the past year, all the things that we've done, achieved, not done, and I hope some aspirations for the future. And we shall also elect our parochial church council and deanery synod representatives. So there's a lot to hear about, I hope you'll come along, and if you are a member of the church electoral roll, you're welcome to vote at that meeting. And now some news of our next concert at Holy Trinity Church. Well, I hope you'll be able to come along to that concert on the Wednesday, the 28th of October. Again, we're trying our best to make the church a place where people come and can feel safe, distanced, and enjoy the concert. It's free. And where, if you've appreciated what you've heard, we're going to ask you to leave a donation. I'm looking forward to it very much. Well, at the beginning of November, we keep the solemnity of All Saints, when we give thanks to God for all the saints. And there are many, many saints that we give thanks for. Often we, in the church calendar year, only hear about the famous saints, but there are such wonderful saints. And having spent so many years in Cornwall, I really appreciate that some of those Celtic saints, although we've never heard of them, they're wonderful. So that's on All Saints Day, and it falls on a Sunday this year. And so we'll be having a solemn Eucharist at 10 o'clock at Holy Trinity Church. The following day is Monday, the 2nd of November. That is All Souls Day. Here's a short video of what to do if you would like your loved ones remembered at the Requiem Eucharist, which will be sung on Monday, the 2nd of November. Please put this date in your diary and come along as we remember names of our loved ones at the altar during the Eucharist. I hope you're able to see that list, and that you are able to, in some way, find someone to pass on loved ones' names if you're not able to get to church, either by emailing me or by phoning me, or passing it on through someone else. Well, we move on with our programme now. That's all the news for this week, with our hymn today. It's a lovely, lovely hymn. Oh, worship the King.
Hymn number 101, Oh, worship the King, all glorious above. For those of you who are looking at a hymn book, we will omit verse 3, that's the start verse. And for verse 6, Lizzie's going to sing the descant. So try and hold on to the tune.
It's a lovely hymn. I've got so many favourites. It's sometimes very difficult to decide which really is the top of the list, because every time I hear a favourite hymn, I want to put them all to the top of the list. Thank you, James and Lizzie, for that. Well, we come to our interview for this week, and today we're meeting Peter Rendall. Peter is a very devout member, him and Anne, at Holy Trinity, Weymouth. And it's been a great joy to be associated with this lovely couple and to hear about some of the great work they have been doing in our Weymouth community over many years. Well, I'm here this morning. We've just had our parish Eucharist at Holy Trinity Church today with Peter Rendall. And Peter is a member of our church, and also acts as verger and sidesperson and all manner of things. But he's had several interesting jobs. and been very involved in the life of Weymouth as a councillor. He's an alderman of the town, and been very involved with the community over many years. So welcome, Peter, and I'm going to talk to you or ask you to tell me a little bit about your involvement in the community.
Thank you, Andrew. I've been involved with many things throughout the years, some which have now gone on the wayside, but I'm very much involved with as chairman of the League of Friends of Weymouth and Portland Hospitals. I took over that role just over 3 years ago, when the chairman at that time had to vacate because he did look after his wife, who was very ill, and it was likely to fold. So I said, all right, I'll take over until the next AGM. As I say, 3 years ago, I'm still in the position. But it is very enjoyable. We have a wonderful committee which work hard, or have done until this year, unfortunately. They're dedicated, and it's wonderful to be able to work alongside and with the members of the NHS, not just in Weymouth and Portland, but we are involved in the county of Dorset with the NHS as well, as a volunteer.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the money that you've raised, what that's been spent on over the years?
Over the years, long before I became involved, bought 2 cars which enabled drivers to take disabled people without having to get an ambulance for them when they had a visit from possibly West Haven Hospital to go to the county hospital for x-rays or something like that. Didn't have to involve, as I say, an ambulance. The T-bar in the community hospital is run all by volunteers within the League of Friends.
Mm-hmm.
That can, last year, raised over £11,000.
Gosh, that's a lot of money.
Obviously not all profit, because we have to buy the goods, but it's our biggest fundraiser. We always done until this year a seafront stall, which always brought in £400 or £500. Other things which we purchased or had built was a special annex in the Portland Hospital. When it's, of course, it's not a bedded hospital now, unfortunately. That gave people nice, like a conservatory. It was beautiful. And also for West Haven and the Portland Hospital, we bought some apparatus which was able to, one nurse could take one person to a toilet. A glorified sack truck, if I could put it. But it enabled, rather than have to wait for 2 nurses to be able to take this one person, a little seat on it where they could be in comfort, but as I say, one nurse, so it cleared up. And there's many other things which were done long before my.
People, I don't think realise that, you know, that in all these community hospitals, there is usually a group of friends who work tirelessly behind the scenes to provide, you know, that extra, those extra things that are needed in communities. And your League of Friends does a fantastic work in the locality, and I expect you're always looking for new members.
Definitely, and volunteers are are important,
Yeah.
especially for the tea bar. It's only open Mondays to Fridays. We would like to maybe extend it to weekends, but at the present time it's closed because it wouldn't be economical to keep it open, because every person that goes in there has to be by appointment, so they're not waiting around for a long time.
Now, I'm really interested to know about your time as a councillor, because you've been mayor, haven't you? And how important you feel that councillors are in communities.
Well, councillors are the mouthpiece for the people they represent, to bring actions forward and try and get things repaired. And just as also, you're a person in the community. Hopefully they can say, oh, I can talk to him, I can talk to her, and they will understand what I'm saying.
What about your time as mayor? Have you been mayor more than once?
No, just the once.
Oh, and what year was that?
1991.
And what kind of things did you do when you were mayor? Is it mayor of Weymouth and Portland?
It was Mayor of Weymouth and Portland at that time, yes.
It's not now, is it? They're
No.
two separate.
It's moved on again now to Dorset Council.
Yeah.
I think personally it's not a good thing, because it's more the councillors are more remote.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but my mayoral year, well, Anne and I had an absolute wonderful year, and the sort of things that we did, open face, small things like that, but it was important to those fundraisers, whatever charity they were raising funds for. I always said that if they wanted to invite the mayor, we should support them.
Yes.
And that's my philosophy straight right through the year, or our philosophy. But obviously we had a lot of, shall I say, bigger things. Turned out that in 1990, it was the 50th anniversary of many things. The Battle of Britain, the formation of Number 4 Commando, which was actually formed in Weymouth and used the old pavilion, the Ritz, as its headquarters. And we had during that year the commemoration of the founding of Number 4 Commando here in Weymouth.
Gosh.
And it's something which I should never ever forget, or we will never ever forget.
Can I ask you, because what I'm really interested in recognition of your service to the community and to Weymouth and Portland, you were made an alderman of the town. What does that mean, Peter?
It's an honorary title, which again now has become defunct. When I first joined the council in 1971, and at that time it was Weymouth and Malcolm Rees' council, the councillors would nominate certain people to become aldermen. It was a rise above of a councillor. They were still had the vote and everything in there, and they were elected for 6 years instead of 3.
Right.
Then when it became Weymouth and Portland Borough, that was lost. But the councillors at the time decided that if a councillor had served a minimum of 10 years and been mayor, they would, when they finished, they would be granted as an honorary alderman.
Well, a lovely title. I mean, I'm very jealous because you get free parking, don't you? But I think, well, I know that when you were mayor, you had the vicar here as your chaplain,
I did, Stephen Venner, yes.
and who went on to be Bishop Stephen Venner, the Bishop of Dover, and who we see here from time to time. And I want to, and this is really quite important for me and for those viewers who will be watching this programme, is how important your faith is to you and how you got involved at Trinity.
Well, it's a long story, really, I suppose. My first church I went to as a 7-year-old was Holy Trinity in Dorchester.
That's gone now, isn't it?
Well, it's a Catholic church.
Oh, it's the Catholic Church.
I was at a school in Collerton Road, which was 100 yards away from the entrance to Holy Trinity, and the school used to go there for occasional services. And I enjoyed it so much, I joined the choir.
Yeah.
And well, then when we moved to Weymouth, obviously things was a bit more difficult to get to Dorchester. Well, actually in Moncton choir then, Winterbourne Moncton, which you visited.
Oh, lovely little church.
But working shift work and working Sundays, it wasn't so easy. So we tried churches in Weymouth, went to St. John's, and it was a lovely vicar there. It was wonderful, but retirement comes to all of us. His successor was, again, a lovely man, absolutely lovely. But I'm afraid, again, working shift work and listening to a sermon of about half an hour, it became a little bit too much. I was actually going to sleep. And I said to Anna, I can't go. And then we were saying, we want to go to church, we want to go to church. And we knew of Geoffrey Walton.
Yep.
So we said, we'll come into Troy Trinity. That was about 1981, I believe it was. And we've been regular ever since.
And great contributors to the life of the church and the congregation. And I know she's not going to like me doing this, but I'm going to swing the camera around because these two are inseparable. This is Anne, Peter's wife, and they are a wonderful, wonderful couple, and they're full of wisdom, and I know that I can always rely on them to talk to about absolutely anything. They're always together, they do everything together, and what a great example of Christian faith and love they show to all of us, and years of wisdom as well, and that's absolutely wonderful. And I know that you're both involved in the life of the church, and keep us all going with enthusiasm, and always show your gratitude and your interest in everything that happens. Also, I know that in your life, both of you, of the church here in Holy Trinity, you've been quite instrumental in making sure this church is open when there are cruise ships in town. And we've started to get more and more, well, not at the moment, they're all sitting empty out in the bay, but when they are cruising, they stop in Portland, and quite a lot of people come to the church. Tell us a little bit about some of the people that you've met and where they come from.
Oh, we've met such wonderful people. We've seen people who looked at the organ and said, God, this is a fantastic organ. And I said to them, would you like to play a few notes? Well, they told me they were organists. And they've come out with it. Well, this is beautiful. The acoustics, it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
We've had that 2 or 3 times. And we met a couple which one of the first cruise ships that we came across, opened up for, was a couple from California. And actually they came in here the Sunday after a Sunday church service. And we were speaking to them, it's 5 years ago now. And we're still in contact with them, which is absolutely lovely.
Isn't that lovely?
I've actually given them the web address for Holy Trinity to see the services you kindly put online for Sundays. I should possibly tell them if they want to have a shop, they could look at this.
I'm sure they'd love to see you again.
But the people we've met, and the thing which has always stood in our memory is that it's not necessarily the passengers themselves, but the work people.
Yeah,
We get the Filipino people in,
yeah.
and they're absolutely lovely. And we were told by one group to come in, we always go, wherever we land, we always find a church.
They're very devout people, aren't they?
And I think some of them have been in here more than once.
Yeah, yeah.
But not only do they come in, they're very generous as well. They want to put money in the pot, which, you know, they're not highly paid people, and their money is so important for them to send back to their families. I mean, one we met when we actually went on a cruise, he said, if I didn't do this, my children wouldn't be educated.
But those are the people that give, aren't they? You know, and
Yes.
and they may have so little. It's a bit like the widow's mite from, you know, from the Gospels. Those who have little tend to give more in proportion to what they have than others. Maybe that's a sweeping statement, but you know, in my experience too, it's been like that.
We've met some really very interesting and lovely people, and we've been very lucky because we've had a friend of ours, Denise, who's come in, who speaks fluent
It's a lovely
Spanish.
lady. Yeah.
And when somebody comes in, we have the leaflets in different languages, and we ask them what language. They say Spanish, and we say, speak with Denise, and Denise speaks to them, and their mouths drop open in amazement that there's somebody speaking Spanish so beautifully.
Yes, she's very fluent in language, isn't she? And she's a very nice lady. So we must bring this interview to a close now. I just want to thank you, Peter, for taking time today, because we do have some wonderful people in our congregation at Holy Trinity. Thank you both, Peter and Anne. Great couple. Sit back now and listen to Lizzie Peacock. Lizzie's going to sing a lovely song called Turtle Dove.
Farewell, my dear, I must be gone and leave you far above. If I roam away, I'll come back again, though I roam 10,000 miles, my dear, though I roam 10,000 miles. So far thou art, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I. But I never will grow false to the bonny lass I love, till the stars fall from the sky, my dear, till the stars fall from the sky. The sea will never run dry, my dear, nor the rocks never melt with the sun. But I never will grow false to the bonny lass
Thanks, Lizzie. Now we're going to take our little trip to Devon today, and to a place with a funny name called Taddyport. The name comes from the word Toad Gate. Watch this short video. Hope you enjoy it.
Today we're looking from Castle Hill, Torrington, over the little village of Taddyport, and we're looking down on what was once the lepers' fields. Taddyport was a leprosy colony, and it's lovely as it sits in the valley with its little chantry church, medieval tower, once a leprosy hospital. In the Middle Ages, the Crusaders brought leprosy back to England. And that tower had one bell in it, and the bell would ring not to call people to worship, but to call the lepers in from the fields at meal times. A glorious little building. Inside we see a very intimate little worship area with an altar, some statues of Mary, and behind the altar some pictures of biblical scenes. The church, although was built in the 13th century, it's had many additions over the years, especially during the 18th century. And here we see the addition much later, but very in character with the building, the leper's window. Lovely colours in this modern window, and as I say, not at all out of character with the building. And here we have an inscription from the 18th century, a verse from Micah. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is come, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. And finally, at the bottom of the village, we see another medieval structure. It's that lovely bridge, lovely horse-pack bridge, which is still used today with traffic to and fro, which makes the village quite noisy. But in this scene, it looks very tranquil. The River Torridge is very calm and still, and a lovely visit. Taddyport in North Devon, looking down over the lepers' fields. Well worth a visit.
Well, what a lovely visit that was to Taddyport. That little church was stunning. That medieval tower was just lovely, and 4 foot square. 4 foot square. Great visit. Hope you enjoyed it anyway. Well, now we head back to Devon again, and you catch me out rambling. I know I ramble, but I'm talking about the rambling on foot today, as opposed to what I'm doing now is rambling on to you. But watch this and share with me in a little reflection for today's programme. Well, good morning, and I've decided to come off the trail this morning, and I've walked up some fields, and I'm now about to come out of these very dense woods, having seen lots of squirrels and other little creatures running around. I thought I would just stop and share with you this morning some of my thoughts as I have been walking. You can't help but notice when you're out how peaceful it is. And finding peace in today's world is hugely difficult for anybody. And we are in a world where not only are we confronted with noise everywhere we go, but we're also confronted as we look around the world with war and conflict and tensions, and it's all to do with power, people wanting power over other people. But of course the gospel that we share with each other as Christians is about peace. So appropriately I was thinking about one of those wonderful beatitudes that we read and sometimes perhaps we take for granted. And I want to take you to St. Matthew chapter 5 verse 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. The concept of peace in Scripture is based on the meaning of the Hebrew word shalom. You may have heard that word, especially if you know Jewish people. Shalom refers to a way of life in which justice, peace, goodness, righteousness and flourishing abound for all people. And this is life as God intends it to be, in which everyone lives in harmony with God and with their neighbours. And Jesus came to bring and restore us to peace with God. And I'm off the top of my head thinking of other scripture readings. St. John chapter 16 verse 33, and certainly the letter to the Romans chapter 5. And we're invited to be peacemakers together with Jesus. Just as he is the Son of God, so we become children of God as we join in his mission of peacemaking. Shalom making involves everything that we do in our work and play, in the way we handle our finances, in all our relationships with family, friends and neighbours. Shalom guides us to build unity across racial differences, to break down barriers that keep people in poverty, call for legislation that helps life to flourish, and point to God's way of living that brings full life to everyone, including care for all of God's creation. You will be aware, I'm sure, that all of our Christian worship closes with a blessing, usually of peace, on the people who are gathered, so that they may go out to share God's peace with others. The book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24 to 26. Let me finish with this. You will know it. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. In these difficult times around the world and the times we face in our own country, in many different ways, we must never give up working towards peace and unity, for inclusion, for racial justice, and all the things that may divide us. If we live in peace, then we live in God. Well, I wish you God's blessing again today. The fog has lifted, but the sun has gone, but it won't deter me on my journey trying to find out a way out of this forest. I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now. God bless. I did get out of that wood and gathering, and found myself more or less where I wanted to be. Well, we've coming to the end of our programme today now, and we're going to have our prayers, and I hope that you will find these little few moments a time to reflect, a time to think about the importance of our Christian faith in the world and in our lives. And I hope to see you again next Thursday for another edition of More T Vicar. Lovely to welcome you today, and thank you for inviting me into your homes. See you soon.